So we developed a RESTful API service that allows people to manage lists of potential investments or stocks that they're interested in purchasing or tracking. So as part of this, we've developed a Python RESTful API function that's deployed on a virtual machine on AWS, and that connects to a MySQL database that's running on Amazon RDS. And if I click onto MySQL Workshop, I can quickly see the structure of the table sitting in the MySQL database. If I go back to the RESTful API service, the first page just gives you all the authors and our group number 11, and a list of the relevant APIs that we have developed. So the first one allows you to get all of the stocks in your list. The second API allows you to get information on a specific stock within your list. The third API calls out to an external API held by AlphaVantage, which allows you to search for simple stock information based on a company's name or symbol. And we particularly use this API request to identify the symbol of a certain stock. You can then also call out to AlphaVantage to get more detailed information about the stock using the get stock information, and that allows you to get price data as well as fundamental company and stock information, such as an overview of the company. Finally, when you want to update your list of stocks, you can use the latter-free API requests. So we have one request where you can add new records to your stock list. You can update the information within for a particular record in that stock list. And finally, you can delete that stock. So now we will demo all of the API requests one by one. And for the demo, I'll be largely using Postman. So to start with, we're going to get all the stocks in our list. And if I jump onto Postman and go to get all stock API request, you can see that it's just the URL plus the port number of our virtual machine, followed by stocks. And if I do this send request, it will come back with the same information that was displayed in the table that we just saw. So we've got one company called Apple and its stock symbol, and a second company called Amazon.com and its stock symbol. So if I wanted to particularly look at Amazon's information, I would gather their stock symbol, and then I'll go to get a specific stock API, which is the virtual machine's URL followed by stocks, followed by the symbol. So go to get a specific stock, then this is the URL, go stocks. I'm just going to add Amazon's symbol, click send, and it'll come back with Amazon's information. Also, there is appropriate error handling. So if I input a symbol that does not exist within the database, it will return back an error. So here we can see that there's a 404 error, and it says that the stock does not exist within the database. Okay, so for the purpose of the demo today, I want to add a stock to the list, and I want to add IBM. So I'm going to go to the search for stock symbol to identify IBM's stock symbol. So all I do here is I go to the end, add IBM as a search parameter, click send, and it will filter back the best results. And again, this is calling out to an external RESTful API hosted by AlphaVantage. And it will give us a list of various different stocks that relate to IBM. So we can see here the top stock is IBM, and if I scroll down, it's ones that are like loosely related to the name IBM. So now that I've gathered this basic data, I want to add IBM to our list of stocks. So in order to do that, I am then going to go to the add new stock API, which is a post request. And I'm just going to copy the symbol. I'm going to make sure the stock symbol is there and copy the name. Then I'm going to send this post request, and it's come back with a 201 response, indicating that the stock has been created within the database. Additionally, for this API, if I just remove the stock name and try to re-add this with various different parameters, it should respond with an error code indicating that stock name is required. So for this, we've got a 400 bad request error code, and it points out exactly the JSON field that's required as an input parameter. Just do all of that. Okay, so now if I go back to the get all stocks, it should be updated with the International Business Machine Corp. Okay, so I'm just going to run this again. IBM has been updated in the database. But International Business Machine is a bit of a handful to say, so I'm going to change this from International Business Machine to IBM. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to the update stock API. I'm going to include the stock symbol that I want to change at the end of the URL, and then add the updated elements to the JSON body. So here it's going to be IBM at the end. The stock symbols will remain as free, and I want to change the name to just IBM. Then when I send this request, it will come back with the number of rows that have been affected in the database and whether the command was successfully performed. Again, if I was to not include, say, stock name, it will come back with a various error, 400 bad request. And if I was to put in the name of a symbol that doesn't exist within the database, it will come back with an appropriate error. So 404 not found. So you can see that if the resource doesn't exist within the database, it will come back with a 404 not found. And if the resource does exist within the database, but you put in not insufficient JSON, then it'll come back with a 400 response. So now we should see this International Business Machine change to IBM. And here we can see that it's changed to IBM. So the purpose of this is now I can use this information to go out and source information on this particular stock. So for this, I want to use the get stock information. And to start with, I just want to get an overview of IBM. And you can see here from the example path, I'm going to include the symbol followed by the function I want to perform. So in this case, it's going to be the symbol for IBM, so IBM, followed by overview. So here we can see IBM, and then the overview, and send a request. Again, this is going out to AlphaVantage and sourcing information directly from their API. So here we can see the address of IBM and various different details about it. And subsequently, I can have a look at time series information, which is essentially the price data over certain periods of time. So for this, I just need to change overview to time series _ monthly, and it's going to present me back the monthly stock price information. So here you can see it's confirmed that's giving me back the monthly prices, and you can see stock market information like the open, high, low, close prices of IBM for each specific month. Okay, so finally, after all of that, I've now identified that I don't want to invest in IBM, and there's no reason to invest in it for the foreseeable future. So I want to subsequently delete it from my list. So I'm going to delete IBM, and I simply go to the delete request, type in IBM at the very end of the URL, hit send. It'll tell me how many rows are affected, so I've deleted one row, and whether the command was successful. which is true. Equally, like all of the other API calls, there's error handling around this. So if I include a stock symbol that doesn't exist within the database, it should return an error. So I'll just include. And you can see there's a 404 response indicating that it could not find that stock. So finally, if I go back to the get all stocks list, we should now see that IBM has been deleted from the database and therefore will not appear in the response here. And we can see that it's been deleted. So now we're going to move on to looking at the virtual machine where the Docker image is running in a Kubernetes pod. So I'm going to flick onto that, which will be present in my terminal. And then I'm just going to run a command which will get all the information on the Kubernetes resources. So as we can see here, we've got a load balancer, which is deployed. And if you look at this specific port number, like 32653, this is a port that we've been hitting for all of the various requests. So I'll flip onto the URL quickly. And you can see that it's the same port number here. And I'm going to flip onto Postman as well. And you can see it's the same port number here. So all of these requests have been going through the load balancer. And then this load balancer has been dividing these requests between 3 different Kubernetes pods, all running the same Docker image. And you can see all around running status, all are ready, all are up to date. So everything's working as it should be. Finally, as a little side note, we developed a process to essentially performance test the API. So this is just calling out to this URL, and it's going to hit it with 1,000 API requests asynchronously, which means that it'll hit them all in parallel, and you can just see that it's running within about 20 seconds, which is relatively fast. So we'll just carry on ticking over for 1,000 requests. And there we go. So it took just under 30 seconds this time. And then finally, all of our code can be found on our GitHub. So if you go onto this GitHub URL, you'll be able to find everything. We've got a README file that is explaining all of the relevant files within the GitHub repository. You can see all of the authors, and if you have any, if you want to test the code and you find any issues, please just add an issue. Additionally, as part of this, we've also created various Docker images, which we've deployed to Docker Hub at this URL. So I think the latest one is 12, but you can call out to the various different versions that we've got in the past.